I will move on, if I may, to amendments New Clause 6, 2 and 83. Mr. Speaker, New Clause 6 and Amendments 2 and 83 suggest that the National Planning Policy Framework leaves gaps in respect to protected land. But this is not the case. Strong protections already exist for these areas, and further protections are not necessary. A blanket ban, as proposed here, would be disproportionate. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank the Minister for that comment. Is she saying that, and she should be very clear on this, there is absolutely no prospect of any fracking happening on any of this list of properties, and that anybody looking at this debate should be very clear the government had no intention of allowing that? Is that what she's saying?
Gentlemen, if he will let me comment on some of these, that particular aspect in my words, I hope it will reassure him. The existing legislative framework provides a robust framework for this protection for those sensitive areas. The Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations 2010 require a developer to undertake a habitats regulation assessment whenever a proposed project is likely to have a significant impact on a special conservation area or a special protection area. These protections derive from European law and set a very high bar. These regulations are supported by the National Planning Policy Framework, which recognises areas that should be given a high level of protection, even if the development is outside the site boundary. These include special areas of conservation, special protection areas, sites of special scientific interest and Ramsar sites. Planning guidance published last July set out the specific approach to planning for unconventional hydrocarbons in national parks, the Broads, areas of outstanding natural beauty and World Heritage sites. The guidance makes clear that planning authorities should refuse planning applications for major development in these areas unless it can be demonstrated that both exceptional
The Minister has just suggested that an amendment is being made to the amendment which are in front of us in this committee and the bill today. If that is the case, are we going to have an opportunity to be able to scrutinise that amendment, if indeed what the Minister said is correct in the terms of those words being removed from the bill?
I think that the matter there was one of the honourable gentleman's interpretation. For the avoidance of doubt, I must just say that no manuscript amendment has been tabled, and it would have been the normal course for it to have been tabled prior to the start of the debate. It has not been, and I think that the best course at this stage is for honourable members in all parts of the House simply to listen to the Minister's speech. There is indeed no manuscript amendment. I don't think I can be clearer. Point of order, Ms Anne McIntosh.
Is there an amendment then to that effect?
Amendment is required in order to prove that there is no amendment. And it makes me think that the honourable lady has been reading Heidegger and nothing nuts. But there is no manuscript amendment. Consideration of this matter should not be clouded by thoughts of a manuscript amendment. I have been given no indication that there will be a manuscript amendment, and it would be extraordinary, to put it mildly, for a manuscript amendment to be proposed or put forward for consideration by me or by professional advisers when the debate has already started. Things need to be dealt with in an orderly manner. Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
I'll just take the point of order from the right honourable lady, and then the Minister can come back in either on a point of order or to continue her speech.
Mr. Speaker, no, I think that the House would like some clarification as to what we're actually going to be voting on, as to whether or not it would be a ban overall, because there are many amendments down from members on both sides of the House seeking to actually bring that about. And when we come in an hour's time to debate all these amendments, we really won't know whether or not we can be confident that the government is actually doing as it says. So I would be grateful if the Minister, perhaps if not instantly, in the next 45 minutes could tell us what it is she's actually putting forward.
Well, of course, members must listen to what the Minister has to say, but for the avoidance of doubt, what members will be voting on is that which is on the order paper. I don't mean it in any sense discourteously, but it's not for the Chair to seek to interpret amendments or new clauses, and I would not presume to do so. Each honourable or right honourable member must make his or her own assessment of the merits or demerits and implications of new clauses and amendments and vote accordingly. But we are voting only on what is on the paper, not on that which is not on the paper. Minister.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I turn to new clause 7 on the issue of environmental impact assessments, EIAs. I will also begin to address new clause 19 and its various themes in turn. The Government shares the desire expressed in new clause 7 and new clause 19A to ensure the public are made fully aware of issues raised in EIAs before a planning application is submitted. And I can reassure members that this is the case. The comprehensive requirements for planning applications, for which there is an environmental statement, are already set out in Article 13 of the Development Management Procedure Order. This requires that the environmental statement be publicised before a local planning authority can determine an application. Planning authorities are already required to ensure that mineral developments will not have unacceptable adverse impacts on the environment. Where a development is likely to have a significant effect, an EIA is required. If any significant environmental effects are identified that cannot be mitigated, then planning permission can be refused. This approach works well in practice and is consistent with our European obligations, ensuring that an EIA, which involves substantial work, often taking up to a year to develop, is only undertaken where it adds value. However, the Government understands the need to build public confidence in the shale sector, so we welcome the reassurance provided by the industry's public commitment to carry out EIAs for all exploration wells that involve hydraulic fracturing, and the industry have made a further commitment to produce an annual report listing the shale sites that have produced an EIA. I'm going to make some progress on further clauses. And I will give way again before the end of my comments, but I'm conscious and aware that the honourable gentleman may want to address some of the points that I've raised. New clause 19B and Amendment 1 are concerned with inspection of wells. The Health and Safety Executive are the independent regulator, and their specialist inspectors assess operators' well notifications and weekly operations reports throughout well construction. Final consent for drilling operations rests with DEP. It will check with the relevant environmental agencies and HSE, Health and Safety Executive, that they have no objections before giving consent. Health and safety legislation in the UK already requires all well activities to be reviewed by an independent well examiner. The work uses the important principle that it is the well operator who retains responsibility for preventing any unplanned release of fluids. It is right that this fundamental duty rests with those who create that risk. The suggestion that the HSE approve each well could remove this responsibility. Additionally, rather than give a one-off approval as suggested here, the Health and Safety Executive currently takes a life cycle approach and can intervene at any time. I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Take the Minister back to what she was saying earlier. She seemed to be asking the House to rely on an order and on a commitment by the industry rather than putting the matter into primary legislation. Now, if she agrees with what is in that clause, what precisely is her objection to having it on the face of the bill?
That's right.
Well, the Honourable Lady raises an interesting point. There is a lot to be considered in primary legislation. There is also a place for secondary legislation. We have made the decision that there is sufficient in here on the cover for primary legislation. And I can reassure you that each shale site will still be inspected by the Health and Safety Executive during the exploration phase. Also, I have agreed with the Health and Safety Executive that they will publish information for each visit to a shale site on the assessments that they do. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
For giving way. I raised the second reading and raised again today. Will those inspections be unannounced inspections? Will they be rigorous? And will there be full transparency on what HSE inspectors find?
Well, the short answer to that is yes. The purpose of the HSE inspections is to ensure that there is safety and that there is clarity. And I believe that that will be able to reassure the honourable member when he takes a closer look. Mr. Speaker, regarding new clause 19C and D and Amendment 117, I can reassure the honourable members that we support the use of baseline monitoring. The issue is about the appropriateness of the monitoring period and the requirements involved. The Environment Authority already has the powers to require baseline monitoring under the conditions set in the environmental permit. The operator reports this information to the Environmental Authority, who place it on the public register. I will just make some progress on this clause, but I assure the honourable gentleman I will let them intervene before I have finished. The environmental regulator adopts a risk-based approach to its assessment, an approach endorsed by the Royal Society. In addition, as announced in committee, the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs will direct the Environment Agency to require operators to undertake at least 3 months baseline monitoring of methane in groundwater before hydraulic fracturing can commence. I give way to the honourable gentleman, and then I will take from the honourable gentleman.
I'm very grateful to the Minister. I want to take her back to what she said about the use of secondary legislation, because she will know, having been a member of this House for a number of years now, that secondary legislation is dealt with in committee, lasting merely 90 minutes at maximum.
Yeah, even that.
What we need is a proper primary legislation to have enshrined in that the safeguards, the environmental safeguards. Why is she so obsessed about not doing that?
Yeah.
I'm only sorry that the honourable gentleman didn't have the time to listen to us all in committee when we spent many, many hours debating this subject and covered many different subjects. It was a great opportunity and gave everybody an important chance to raise all the issues that they could. There is no suggestion that there isn't enough time to address it. I was referring, Mr. Speaker, to the announcement.
Speaker, can you please rule the Minister's view, which seems to be confusing the Bill Committee with an order in Council, a committee that lasts a mere 90 minutes?
Yeah.
I think that's a matter for the Chair. I think that members must make their own assessment. The honourable gentleman's made his assessment. For all I know, he might beetle around the chamber trying to share it with others. I don't know. But people will form their own assessment. I think let's hear the Minister's oration. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that clarification. On the issue of the announcement that I made in committee with the Secretary of State for... I will just answer this particular point, if I may. For the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs will direct the Environment Agency to require operators to undertake the 3 months baseline monitoring. This is a minimum of 3 months, so in practice the Environment Agency may require a longer period of monitoring where it is appropriate. I give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. Earlier on in her speech, she mentioned the fact she would be using the Health and Safety Executive will. There have been cuts to its budget, and there have been reduces in the numbers that's reduced to the Health and Safety doing just the occasional spot check. How does she think that organisation is going to be competent to monitor this?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman raises an interesting point. It is essential that the Health and Safety Executive is able to do their job well. We've had conversations with them, and there is no suggestion they can't, but we will, of course, keep it under review. On the issue of fugitive emissions, I give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Can she advise the House whether in her assessment, whether she's done prior to this work, come to this House, whether she's looked at the needs of the Environment Agency and the Health and Safety Executive for additional staff? And if she hasn't, will she do that before she pushes this bill any further? Because we won't know what it costs to do this job properly.
Well, it's an important point made by the Honourable Gentleman. It's absolutely essential that the Environment Agency, Health and Safety Executive have sufficient staff to do it. They have not raised this with me. They have accepted the fact they will have the responsibility, but we will always keep conversations open with them to ensure that they can do their job correctly. On the issue of